So I go to the exposure camp, and I got seen by some people who have some say. That's one thing that happened, but I didn't sign a contract. Second thing is you get a scouting report. Those people who know stuff, they write a scouting report about you, basically talking about your strengths and weaknesses, and they put it up on the website. So this is important because I had some third-party credibility. I played pretty well at this camp. I can show you. I actually I still got the picture of the scouting report. And that scouting report mattered because now I finally had somebody other than myself saying, hey, this guy can play, and he actually might be pro material. All right, that was important because that was the first time anybody had said that about me. This is the first exposure camp I went to. It was very important that I had that scouting report. Third thing is you get the footage of everything that you did at the camp. Mind you, camp's only 2 days. So you play 2 games on Saturday, 2 games on Sunday. And the footage from this scouting report, from this event was very important because now I had proof. Yes, the scouting report, somebody saying I'm good is one thing, but in sports, you need proof. And hard proof means we got to see it. Let me see that you can play. You got to show me. So this is the footage. So I take this footage, I go back home. I had to go back home to Philly. I didn't get signed to a contract on the spot. We drive back to Philadelphia from Orlando. We left Philly on Friday in a car and drove to Orlando. We left Orlando on Sunday in a car and drove back to Philly. I had to be at work Monday morning. All right, so I didn't even get to sleep. All right, I had to be back at work Monday morning. Now I got the scouting report and I got the footage. Now what do I do? Because I still don't have a contract. I got footage and I got people saying I'm good. Now here's what I had to do. I appreciate a literal skill. Here's what I had to do. I needed to find a basketball agent. What's an agent in basketball? For those of you who don't know the world, an agent is basically the go-between between the jobs and the people. So if you want a job, you get an agent, and the agent is like the middleman. So an agent, I knew I was going to play overseas. I'm from Philadelphia, went to school at Penn State. I had barely been out of the state, let alone out of the country at this point in my life. I'm going to go back in that story in a minute and tell you somewhere that I did go. But anyway, if I'm going to play overseas in Italy or France or something like that, I don't know anybody in those places, but agents know people. So if I can get an agent to know me and they like me, then they will talk me up and help me get on. So this is my idea. This is my theory. Again, I don't know if this is going to work. This is just my theory. So here's what I do. I go on Google. This is 2005. Google did exist. It wasn't anything like it is now, but it did exist. And I looked up basketball agents. I just typed in basketball agents. Any basketball agent who had an email address, I sent them an email and said, here's who I am. Here's what I got. I sent them a link to my scouting report. I said I have footage of myself. I emailed them. I emailed a bunch of agents. Any agent who had a phone number, I called them. Now, do y'all understand cold calls? Any of you never had a job where you had to do cold calls, I suggest you get one. And if you have a kid and you want them to be a good salesperson, make them get a job where they got a cold approach and cold sell people, whether that's approaching them on the street, whether it's working at the mall, when you walk up to people, try to sell them some lotion, or they got to get on the phone or knock on doors. All right. I had a job doing that already because I was working at Valley Total Fitness. And when you sell gym memberships, a lot of what you're doing is just randomly calling people in the neighborhood and trying to get them to come to the gym. So I already knew how to cold call. I wasn't afraid of cold calling. So I started cold calling basketball agents. Mind you, this is 2005. I called 60 basketball agents. None of these people knew me and nobody was calling me. I was calling them. And it is very important that y'all understand this. So when I talk about things like discipline, you already got that part. I've explained that to you already. When I talk about mental toughness, hopefully y'all are getting that. Many times things were not working, but I kept trying. When I talk about personal initiative, this is this part right here. I already told you a bunch of times I took initiative. Going to the gym in Abington when nobody was telling me to go to the gym. Going to this exposure camp and negotiating with my boss to get the weekend off to get a chance. Now I'm trying to still get on. I'm not on yet. I'm 23. I'm not on yet. Nobody has signed me. Nobody knows me. I need an agent. I cold called 60 basketball agents, 60 agents. Out of the 60 who I called, I got in touch with about 20. 20 either answered the phone or they called me back. and I told them who I was, what I had, etc. I had a little pitch that I was going to say every time I got on the phone. And they said, all right, send me your footage. Let me see what you got. 20 of them said, let me see what you got. Now, many of you are probably assuming that I sent them a link to my video. Well, here's the problem. There were no links to videos in 2005. No such thing as sending a link to a video in 2005. So here's what I had. That footage, remember I told you I went to exposure camp and they gave you footage? That footage was on this thing called a VHS tape. All right. Any of you put VHS in the comments if you know what a VHS tape even is. All right. Some of you don't even know what that is. All right. You know what a VHS tape is. Put VHS in the comments. So my footage from that exposure camp, I see you, boss man, Shayna. Okay, Tweet. Okay, some of you know what it is. So the VHS tape, folks. I had a VHS footage, those games from the exposure camp was on that. Now at home, I had this thing called a double decker VCR, not VHR, VCR. You were born in '05, you know what it is? All right, that's what's up. Shout out to people who know what it is. You're born after 2000. So I had a double decker VCR at home. So a VCR is the machine you needed to play a VHS tape. And double decker meant you could have two tapes in there at the same time. You could make copies of a tape. So I went to this drugstore called Eckerd. I don't know if Eckerd even exists anymore, but I went to Eckerd. It was one then. And I bought a 10-pack of blank VHS tapes. So I would buy 10 at a time. And I took the master copy of my footage from that camp, and I would make copies of all the footage, and then I would mail the copies out to the agents who were asking for the tape. And I had to mail these out in bubble mailers. I had to literally go to the post office and pay for the postage to mail these tapes out to all these agents. I'm mailing agents in Lebanon, California, and New York. Any agent that said, let me see what you got, I mailed them the bubble mailer VHS copy tape of my footage from playing in this exposure camp. So I sent this to 20 people, right? It's a time machine. Yeah, it is. It's funny, like telling the story now. It doesn't seem like it was that long ago, but it was. So I mailed this footage out to 20 people, right? Out of 20 I mailed it to, how many do you think ended up being interested? I mailed it to 20. How many do you think were interested? I appreciate it, CJ. So my question is, Eckerd was bought by CVS. Okay, that makes sense. All right, now it makes sense. I didn't know what happened to Eckerd, but yeah, it got bought by CVS. So how many people you think responded when I sent my tape to 20 people? I called 60. I talked to 20. I sent tapes to 20. How many do you think I got back in touch with when I tried to follow up? Because I followed up. Mind you, I knew how to sell. I was working at Valley Total Fitness. I knew how to sell. I knew how to follow up. I knew how to initiate. I knew how to do all that stuff. One agent, only one. So I see some of you said